To stimulate neuroplastic changes of the posture system, consider implementing the eye-spine vestibular method of postural correction through postural neurology. Let's talk about why eye-spine vestibular is so effective for controlling postural design. So with the postural rehabilitation, we focus on the eyes or the visual system, the spine, sensory motor integration, and the vestibular system for upright postural balance. So let's talk about the neurology controlling the visual system. So the visual system, or the eyes, we have cranial nerve nuclei or cranial nerves which control the movement of the eyes. Where do those cranial nerve nuclei live? The eyes, the cranial nerve nuclei controlling the eyes, live within the midbrain and the pons of the brainstem. Now the brainstem is what controls your posture. So literally the eyes work with the vestibular system to have better head posture design within space. So the eyes and the vestibular system work together so that you can move your head within space while keeping your eyes gaze stabilized at a certain target while still moving your head within space. So the visual system and the vestibular system are intricately connected with the muscles of your cervical spine to control head posture design. Now the visual system is important to how we orient ourselves within space. So if you think about it, if you were to close your eyes and you don't have the orientation sense of your visual system, we can easily become disoriented, even in a room where we know where everything's located. We change our entire postural pattern with lack of visual stimulus. So the visual system is very important for orientation of the posture system and that head postural design by integration with the vestibular system. And then we have the spine for sensory motor integration. So within the spine, we have the ascending and the descending spinal pathways. The ascending spinal pathways send information from the periphery of the body to the sensory cortex on the contralateral side. When the sensory homunculus or the sensory cortex receives the information, perception occurs, and then the frontal lobe, which contains the motor cortex, creates an appropriate motor response. So sensory motor integration happens through the spinal column with the spine. So activation of the sensory motor systems occurs with sensory motor integration, which is why we recommend working with the spine for sensory motor integration. So any sort of stimulus to the periphery is going to stimulate the contralateral sensory cortex. And then descending motor output is going to occur from the motor cortex to the contralateral side for voluntary movement of skeletal musculature. And then the vestibular system. The vestibular system controls extension and balance. So we have sensors within the inner ear which understand our position of our body against gravity. Any sort of change within gravity is going to stimulate the otoliths of the semicircular canals, which then sends information to the vestibular nuclei of our body position in space. Now the vestibular system, which is located right here in the brainstem in the pontomedullary reticular formation, has a couple of really important descending spinal pathways. There's the medial vestibular spinal tract, which helps control head posture design. And then we have the lateral vestibular spinal tract, which descends to the spinal column, controlling postural tone and upright extension of the posture system. So when we have proper visual function, we have proper orientation within our environment, and we have head posture design that's appropriate for our head posture within space. With the spine, with sensory motor integration, with proper sensory motor integration, we have specific understanding of the inputs to the posture system so that we can make appropriate motor outputs of the motor system to move the posture system within space. So eye, spine, and then of course the vestibular system. The vestibular system, again, controls balance so that we have proper equilibrium within space. We also have upright postural extension. So with stimulation of the vestibular system, we stand upright against gravity with best postural design. That's why we recommend at the American Posture Institute with Postural Neurology implementing the eye-spine vestibular model of postural correction care for best results and best practices with your patients. When you understand the neurology controlling the posture system, it makes it simple to implement really great correction protocols to get optimal postural correction results with your patients in your clinic.